Live to see it, friends, and welcome to The World Transformed. This program is your guide to an astounding future that lies ahead, one that will be here sooner than you think, and one that you have an important role to play in bringing about. At The World Transformed, we want to introduce you to what may be the greatest transformation of them all. The one that begins with considering and acting on the almost limitless possibilities that lie ahead, and that ends somewhere beyond the reach of the human imagination. So, when does this amazing future begin? Well, today is the day. My name is Phil Bowermaster, and with me in the virtual studio is my co-blogger, co-futurist, and co-host, Stephen Gordon. Hello, Stephen.
Hey, Phil. How are you?
Well, I'm super fantastic. How are you, my friend?
Man, I'm great. Doing just fine. Having a good week already this week. How about yourself?
Yes, having a fine week so far. We should mention that this is a short week for the show because we're only doing 2 programs instead of our now usual 3. Although it's twice as many shows as we used to do, so I still feel like we're doing a lot of material here. What do you think?
To the audience, thank you for putting up with us, and you're welcome and all that good stuff.
Sometimes we're on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Yeah. Sometimes we're on Tuesday, Thursday. Sometimes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You just don't know. I mean, that's the beauty of this show. We could we'll surprise you.
Our audience to be flexible.
We do,
or maybe smart enough to figure it out. I hope we're not dodging our audience too badly. So,
well, the beauty of it always is that once we're done here live, and we are so grateful to everyone who's with us here live, but once we're done live, we're on YouTube, we're on Blog Talk Radio, we're on iTunes. You can always find us. The shows will be here forever. So
whenever you're ready.
Whenever you're ready. That's right.
We're here for you when you're ready. So.
At The World Transformed, we are here for you, ladies and gentlemen, my dear friends. That's an excellent way of putting it. Well, we got 2 great shows this week that we're doing, 2 awesome topics, and tonight we're going to be talking about accelerating medicine. And I thought I would frame this in a slightly different way. We've talked a little bit around this subject here over the last few weeks, but I wanted to talk about healthcare and the abundance of healthcare. That was something we touched on while talking about our need maybe to rethink our priorities, or it might have been missed opportunities that we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. We talked about the fact that apply this abundance model, apply this post-scarcity model to healthcare, and what do you get? What kind of future of healthcare do you get? So what I thought would be interesting to do is let's take some recent developments in the world of healthcare and see if post-scarcity thinking applies to those. See if they are indicative of a future of abundance of healthcare. And even if they're not, these are all great stories. They're all pretty good news, aren't they, Stephen?
No bad news tonight, I don't think. So, actually, I added one last story that might start out as bad news, but we'll have a slightly different take on it.
Mr. Buzzkill just couldn't help himself.
Yeah, I couldn't help it. But anyway, I think we have a positive spin to put on even on that one. So,
I think you're right. I believe we do. So let's begin with this story that was on BBC, sniffing out cancer with electronic noses. What an amazing set of developments this is. The tagline on this story is, "We may soon be able to obtain easy and early diagnoses of diseases by smell." This week, researchers found one odor sniffing machine was as good as a mammogram at detecting breast cancer, and many other devices capable of spotting other diseases may be on the way.
Well, a mammogram is not particularly helpful for very young women. The more dense the breast tissue, the harder it is for the mammogram to get a good picture, and so it really works best in women who are older, and to come up with something that's an alternative, that's outstanding. Obviously, it's great news.
Anything that replaces, I would say, an invasive procedure, or a procedure where they got to stick a needle in, or they got to pull a tissue sample out, with one where
it is a mammogram is not a pleasant thing either. So anything that can help make is less unpleasant than that is a good thing. So
and this is definitely moving in that direction, because all you have to do is waft an odor. I mean, it's a completely passive test, and it's really interesting the research that has led to this potential means of diagnosing cancer. The article says, this is a very interesting passage I read, "Smells exist for a reason. The disgust system in the brain has evolved to make us stay away from things that might make us sick. the most dangerous place on the planet is other people. So originally we have a sense of smell, among other things, to ward us off of when someone is ill. Now our own sense of smell has not evolved dramatically enough that we're going to be, human beings are going to go around and be able to sniff cancer on other people or themselves, or sniff other diseases. But dogs can do it. Dogs can actually be trained to sniff out different kinds of tumors, to actually smell that on a person, with no more invasive of a procedure than just that. Have the dog walk up, take a sniff, and sadly, if you've got it, the dog is able to identify that. Now, is that a particularly viable way of going around testing people for cancer?
You can't leverage that up, can you? You know, it takes a long time to train a single dog, a lot of money, a very special dog probably. You could start the training with 10 dogs and end up with one who passes the test, and is able to actually do it.
Right.
And you put a lot of money into that. It's just this, you just can't do that. So what do? They're going to come up with a dog's nose on a chip, right?
Exactly.
That's pretty amazing. So yeah, our noses have 5 million scent receptors. A dog's nose has 300 million scent receptors, and they're figuring out a way to reproduce that electronically. That is amazing and very cool news.
Absolutely. So when you talk about sensors that are tuned as well as a dog's nose, that can be put anywhere. I mean, they wouldn't have to be on some tricorder device that a doctor has. They could be ultimately, when this technology becomes available in our homes, we could have devices sniffing us once in a while just to make sure that we haven't got cancer. And the potential ubiquity of these kinds of devices, having them everywhere all the time, checking on us, means what? It means that we can detect cancer potentially much, much earlier.
I love this passage here, Phil. If you picture a peppercorn and an onion, now the difference in the size between the two is the difference between when you should catch cancer and when we usually do, or traditionally have.
Right.
That would be awesome if we could catch it when it's just a few cells and be able to treat it with much less chemo, maybe a much smaller dose of radiation, and knock that problem out very early before it really is a health crisis.
One of my few predictions for the future, and I stand by this one, is that we will live to see, and in fact we will soon see, cancer become as treatable and as live-withable a condition as diabetes has been over the last few decades. And this is one of the steps that moves us in that direction, because if you've got ubiquitous sensors, if you've got people being tested all the time, and if you can catch the peppercorn, which is what these sensors ought to be able to do, if they can identify the cancer when it's a few cells rather than when it's a friggin' onion, the prognosis for those patients is so much better than it would have been had it been caught 3 months later, 6 months later, whenever you have your physical, or whenever it just something happens and you have to go to the doctor and then you find out that you have cancer. So for that reason at all, I think the incidence of death by cancer, incidence of severe cases of cancer, are all going to plummet once this technology becomes widespread. And does it speak to the abundance of healthcare? I think it absolutely does, because again, these sensors, these are information technology, and subject to Moore's law, subject to the same kinds of economies of scale that we see with all other forms of information technology, meaning that we're going to enjoy tremendous abundance of those, I think, in the very near future.
Yeah, I mean, the first time they make the dog's nose on a chip, it'll cost millions, and then a year or two later, it'll be hundreds of thousands of dollars to make one, and then tens of thousands a year after that, $1,000 a year after that, and then $100 and we all have one.
Exactly.
That's the way this thing tends to go, and man, cancer sucks, and I don't know that there's anybody that's reached my age, Phil, and your age that hasn't had someone close to them that's either fought it and managed to live, or lost their battle to it.
Right.
There's not enough that can be said about faster, please. This is
That's
something that we really need to really need to get on top of. So yeah, great news there. Great news.
Absolutely. We're going to come back to cancer at the end. But
Yep.
now let's shift gears just slightly and let's talk about another application of information technology to treatment of illness or to medicine. And this is the story: bone replacements and heart monitors spur health revolution in open source 3D printing. Did you see this one, Stephen? What do you make of this?
Awesome, awesome. 3D printing is going to be huge, huge in medicine. It's one thing for me to print a 3D coffee cup, right?
Yeah.
But it's not.
Fun,
It's
that's
fun,
nice.
but
Yeah.
ultimately, it'll be a long time before that's the way I get my coffee cups, because coffee cups can be made, by the gross, and everybody, uses basically the same kind of coffee cup, and so it'd be much cheaper for me to go down to Walmart and pick up a coffee cup that's the same coffee cup that you'd pick up where you live, Phil, and it's just that's the way to go.
Sure.
But when it comes to things that need to be manufactured for individuals, whether it be a prosthetic leg or maybe like a hearing aid that needs to fit exactly properly in my ear, or what I have, I actually do have something 3D printed. It's a molar.
Right.
It was 3D printed for to fit over the top of a root that they left after I needed that replaced. So that is that's the way things like that are going. They can print things specific to the individual, and so yeah. But bone replacement, that's on the cutting edge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When you look at this and you say, well, what does information technology, what do the economies of scale start to do for that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
If you've got the capability to produce this stuff essentially on the desktop, I mean, you think about that. You need
Yeah.
you need a bone or ultimately an organ, and it can be done by those kinds of means. Obviously, we're not going to have desktop printers anytime soon. Individuals aren't going to have desktop printers printing out their own organs. I don't think. Not for a few months anyhow. But
Yeah, not
but
not not until the fourth quarter of this year, right?
but
Uh,
if that technology can take off, it's just a complete game changer in terms of the availability of any of the kinds of products that these printers produce. My only question is, if it were 3D printers, or if it were any kind of information technology producing anything else, immediately say, great, economies of scale, the price is going to go down, this thing is going to become abundant, we're going to have post scarcity, yay. But you look at this one, you go, well, okay, but watch out, because you got the medical establishment involved. And can
right.
anything actually be done cheaply with the medical establishment as it currently exists involved?
I predict something, Phil, that there's a huge chance. Well, a few shows ago, we mentioned the billionaire who is in the Bahamas, who says that he's actually getting younger. Right?
Right.
He is experimenting on himself using basically what I believe they're doing is cloning his blood, and so he's getting young blood circulating back into his body, and they're doing some other treatments as well. But stuff like that just would not be possible in this country because the FDA just wouldn't allow that.
Right.
And I think that there's a fair chance that there's going to be medical tourism is going to become a huge, huge industry where people go to the Bahamas and get things like this done. Probably a lot more cheaply than it could be done here because the economies that drive down that kind of technology it'll be closer to the actual market in places that are unregulated than in places like the United States. So I think that Mexico, Bahamas, the Cayman Islands, places like that, people are going to go and get treatment in places like that. It's not available and in this country at all.
And just to continue with that scenario for a moment, if that happens, do you think ultimately that drives our own medical establishment to become somewhat faster, more responsive? Will a sea change occur here? Will there be a paradigm shift, or will we just lose out on being on the cutting edge of this stuff?
I think there's going to be a long transition period.
Hmm.
I think there'll be a period of time where we're just just far behind the cutting edge as a result. And I think that's a shame, but
Yeah.
I don't, I just don't see it happening any other way. I think that, um, we're going to tend to be a dinosaur, which has been powerful in the past and has provided the world with so much and continues to really right now. But ultimately, there's going to be faster and more maneuverable economies that are going to be able to provide things quicker. And I think that ultimately that those models will probably win out, and we'll be slow to respond to that.
And I think if this sounds far-fetched to anyone, I've just put a link in the chat room. This was another story, Stephen, that you had shared with me on the same subject, and I didn't include it in the show description, but I will add it into the show notes both on Blog Talk Radio and at theworldtransformed.com. The headline there is not about bones. It says heart implants 3D printed to order. Tailor-made medical devices could give a more detailed picture of cardiac health and may be better at predicting and preventing problems. When we start talking about this kind of personalization that's possible with this kind of technology,
doctors is what we're talking about, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Yeah.
If we don't adopt that here, but the technology is possible, it will come into being, and people will get treated.
Oh yeah, and people in this country will go get it.
Yeah.
Those who and that's kind of a sad thing, because it'll be those who can afford to go get it that'll go get it, and
right.
And ultimately, it'll be those who can't, who are are subject to not having as good of health, and that's a sad thing. And so and how will our government respond? I hate to be a cynic, but it'll probably be to outlaw medical tourism. We all get to be equally miserable together. That's instead of opening up. It's at any rate, don't get me started on that. I'm a bit of a libertarian sometimes, Phil.
Well,
And,
all I can say is to actually pass a law against medical tourism, I think they'd have to add words to the passport, right? I mean, it's like, because right now it just says, let this person go about their business. What, they're going to add a thing that says, unless they're going to improve their health, in which case we don't want them to do that.
Yeah, we can't have that.
Yeah, don't let them into your country, please.
Yeah, they can come into your country to damage their health.
Yeah. Yeah, we're still cool with that.
Go and drink all you like, or or whatever, but don't do anything good for yourself while you're over there. So.
And that is to me, that's a scary scenario, but it is an entirely possible one. I hate to think of that happening. Now, we're lacking the voice of someone to come in and go, yes, but you understand that all this 3D printing and this is untested and this would be dangerous, and et cetera, et cetera. There is that whole argument to be made that
Right.
just massively printing stuff out and sticking it in people's bodies is dangerous.
Yeah, the real reason we got the FDA to begin with was, people selling nostrums out of the back of wagons,
Right.
That were not effective, often were not safe, and so the FDA was born out of that, with the idea, things need to be both effective, they need to actually do what you say they're doing, and they also need to be, relatively safe. And so that is important, but ultimately, particularly for people that are on the ragged edge of about to die, shouldn't they have the opportunity to experiment with themselves if they want to? At least, even if they don't save themselves, they might be comforted in knowing that by advancing the technology, I might be helping the next guy or girl.
Right.
So
Right.
anyway, that's just a.
But even if our government never adopts that philosophy,
Somebody will.
once it's out there, it will have to be made available to us. We might be laggards. We'll end up following in medical technology the way I see that we're now following the rest of the world in credit card technology. Right? We're catching up, and that's unfortunate. We should be leading the world in this kind of stuff.
We're not very.
Or internet speed, yeah. This is a more serious even than either of those two examples, but it seems to be the direction we're going. Maybe we can turn that around at some point. But let's not go down that rabbit hole, because we've still got a couple more great examples, and I've lost my notes. What is our next example of accelerating medical technology?
Okay, so let's return to cancer for just a second. There's an article in the Huffington Post about melanoma remission drug immunotherapy. So this particular drug is triggering the immune system to fight cancer, and that's we I think it's been a couple of years ago, Phil, that we actually had a person on the show that was working in that field.
Dr. Jing Sui, yes.
That's
And
right.
I think it's been more like 4 or 5 years ago now that we had him on,
That's
actually,
right.
sadly.
Amazing guy doing amazing work. And one of the things that they were finding was that people that could have blood transfusions from those who had the ability to fight it off, and they could actually do basically a immune system transplant in a way.
Right.
And he was doing some amazing work there. But this is along the same lines, but completely different. So, what did you see
Same
there?
principle here. It's the
Yeah.
same principle, but yeah, it's happening. It's a different treatment methodology. He was what were those? I can't think of the names of those particles in the blood that he was particularly isolating and transfusing. This doesn't involve that, but it does involve, in this case, actually suppressing a chemical in the bloodstream that dampens the immune response. So we've got this problem as with myostatin we've talked about, this strange chemical we have in our body that keeps us from building muscle. There is a chemical in our bodies which becomes particularly problematic when people have cancer called PD-1. They call it the programmed death receptor. It acts as a brake on the immune system's ability to attack cancer cells. Of all the things to have in your body, right? So what this drug does is it shuts that down. Basically, it just allows the immune system to do what it should be doing anyway, what it could be doing anyway. It takes a block out of the way of the immune system, and lo and behold, the immune system itself looks like the best way to treat melanoma once you get that thing out of the way. Now, to me, this speaks to the idea of abundance, the idea of post-scarcity, simply because when we start thinking of curing ourselves of these dread diseases by way of the mechanisms that are already in our body, and all we have to do is accelerate those potentially, or just unleash them, just allow them to work. That seems like a completely different model for medicine than what is often practiced. There's this notion of intrusion, invasion, of going in and fixing things, rather than this is just a matter of going in and taking one thing out of the way and letting the body do what it wants to do.
It's almost an Eastern approach, isn't it?
Almost, yeah.
You combine this with the first story. So I go to take my shower, and my shower actually sniffs me and says, "Hold on, I'm smelling something that's not quite right."
Right.
And I go and get it confirmed that, oh yeah, you've got a peppercorn-sized group of cells in your abdomen, Stephen, that needs to be taken care of. And here's what I'm going to give you: an injection that allows your immune system to fight it. Come back and see me in a week, and we'll check and see
Should
how
be
you
all
are.
cleared up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all cleared up.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, you talk about a different world than well, Stephen, you really need to get your affairs in order. What we found, it's already metastasized. Unfortunately, that's the conversation that a lot of people hear when they learn they have cancer.
Right.
And so that's
This would turn cancer on its ear. What
oh
we
yeah,
think about it, how we deal with it, how we respond to it. And in fact, at this point, you'd have the big, much vaunted, much sought after cure for cancer, and though it would be a wonderful thing, it wouldn't seem like that big a deal.
yeah,
It's like, oh, okay, well, I got this little peppercorn thing, and he's going to give me a shot, and my body will flush it out next week. I mean,
yeah.
I'm being glib. It won't be that simple, and of course, it'll be a wonderful thing when it happens. But the difference between that and the scenario you just gave is it's night and day. Those are
Oh
those are
yeah.
two completely different worlds. Now, quickly, I know we have one more example of this, and I don't want to run out of time. So our last one was you being Captain Buzzkill here, right? We're going to talk about um, potentially a counterexample
Yeah,
to
well, it's in the New York
accelerating
Times
medicine.
on Sunday. On Sunday, the New York Times ran a story about antibiotics and said that, you know what, the obesity epidemic in this country, it began to come into effect about the same time that antibiotics were being phased in more and more. And they went back and looked at the science, and the scientists are going back to it and saying, the reason that antibiotics were introduced into the farm animal population was not to keep the animals well, and not initially. The initial was they found that antibiotics made them pack on weight.
Right.
Okay.
Now that
And
might have been through improving their health somehow. Perhaps it
well,
was.
actually, no. It's just a secondary mechanism.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not sure how that works.
Okay.
Okay. So
Interesting.
giving something a lot of antibiotics, they get fat, big, and then they found, oh yeah, and by the way, we can put them together in these factories, these nasty factories, because before we couldn't do that because they'd all die of disease. Now
Because
we
it's
can,
so
the
disgusting in there.
antibiotics
But
can
now
kill
they're
them
all shot up on antibiotics. They can survive that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they can survive that now. So we got these nasty feedlots and things where they put cows and pigs and of course they got chickens in horrible circumstances as well. And so and so the antibiotics are making them big. It's making them be able to survive those circumstances too. They're saying that one of the triggering mechanisms for us having our obesity epidemic might be this, and they had.
Well, think about it. Okay, so we start pumping our livestock full of antibiotics. We start pumping ourselves full of antibiotics. We start eating the livestock that have been pumped full of antibiotics. We were giving them antibiotics to make them fat, and lo and behold, obesity epidemic. It does seem like an awfully big coincidence, doesn't it?
Yeah, it might be. And so what do we do about it? Well, we may be getting to the end of the antibiotic age anyway.
Because they don't do much good. Right?
Yeah, you're getting more and more superbugs that are not affected by these things. So that's not good news. None of this is good news, is it, Phil? I mean, we got an obesity epidemic, and that's not good news. Our antibiotics are getting bad.
Let me give you the good news, Stephen. The good news is the antibiotics have to go anyway. We've got to come up with an alternative to antibiotics.
Right.
And as with that timed death chemical that's making it hard to get rid of cancer, we get the antibiotics out of the way, and at least we're going to help with the obesity epidemic. Yes, we've got a big challenge, which is what are we going to do to replace antibiotics? But you know what? They got to go anyway, and once they're gone, we're all going to get thinner. So, see, that is accelerating medical technology right there. Stephen, I'm afraid that does it. What's our music this evening?
Our music is Run Around Sue, and it escapes me who's doing this, the remake of Run Around Sue. Phil?
This is actually the Joey Harlow project with Run Around Run Around Sue, not Stu. So thank you, Stephen, for putting that music together for us. Thank you all for being with us. We'll be back again on Thursday evening with an all-new show. And until next time, live to see it.
Here's my story, sad but true, about a girl that I once knew. Took my love and ran around with every lad in town. Time of the season, Susie. Moon is full and I can hear the howling in the dark distance. I'm not stupid, honey. I just don't care how many lads you've been seeing. It's the way I see it, baby. The only thing that matters, huh, is you and me and you.